She found a Korean Mafia boss bleeding inside a car trunk on a lonely road. What she did next changed both their lives forever. The alarm didn't go off. That was Martha Williams' first thought as she jolted awake at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes before her shift started at the Bluebird Diner, which was a 22-minute drive away. She didn't curse. Her grandmother had raised her better than that. But she thought several words that would have earned her a wooden spoon to the knuckles back in Memphis. Her apartment was a study in organized chaos. Nursing textbooks stacked on every surface. Evidence of the degree she'd been chipping away at for 4 years while working double shifts. Scrubs draped over the chair. The smell of yesterday's coffee and the faint lavender her roommate Bria insisted would bring positive energy. Martha grabbed her uniform from the closet, the baby blue dress with white collar that made her look like she'd stepped out of a 1950s magazine, and dressed while brushing her teeth, a skill she'd perfected during her years juggling work and school. Her phone buzzed. Phyllis, the diner's manager, already on her case. "Where are you? Morning rush is starting." And Denise called in sick again. Martha typed back with one hand while pulling on her shoes with the other. 5 minutes away. A lie, but one she'd make true even if it killed her. The thing about Los Angeles at 6:50 a.m. was that traffic didn't care about your problems. Martha sat in gridlock on Western Avenue, watching the minutes tick by, calculating exactly how much trouble she was in. Her 2003 Honda Civic made a sound like a dying cat every time she accelerated, but it was paid off and mostly reliable, which was more than she could say for most things in her life. She was officially late. Phyllis would dock her pay, maybe even write her up, and she couldn't afford either. Not with tuition due next month and her grandmother's medication getting more expensive. So when Martha saw the construction sign blocking Western, forcing traffic into a crawl, she made a decision. The shortcut. Everyone knew about it, but most people avoided it. An old access road that cut through an industrial area on the edge of Koreatown. Empty warehouses, abandoned lots, the kind of place you didn't go unless you had to. But it would save her 10 minutes, maybe 15. Enough to walk in only fashionably late instead of catastrophically so. Martha turned onto Hobart Street, then onto the unnamed access road. Her phone's GPS immediately lost signal. The tall warehouses blocking reception. The morning sun barely penetrated here, everything cast in long shadows. Chain-link fences, graffitied walls, the occasional shopping cart overturned in dead grass. The kind of urban decay that reminded her uncomfortably of certain parts of Memphis she'd left behind. Her Civic's engine sounded louder here, echoing off empty buildings. Martha's hands tightened on the steering wheel. This was stupid. This was exactly the kind of decision people made in horror movies, right before everything went wrong. But she could see the exit ahead, maybe half a mile away, and then she'd be back in civilization and at work before 7:15. That's when she saw the car. A black Mercedes sedan, maybe 2 years old, parked at an angle against the curb. Not unusual by itself. Maybe someone had broken down or dumped a stolen vehicle. But something about it made Martha's nursing instincts prickle. The way it was positioned, half hidden behind a dumpster, the driver's door slightly ajar, the complete absence of anyone nearby. She should keep driving, should mind her business and get to work, should not stop in an abandoned area to investigate a suspicious vehicle. All of this went through Martha's mind in the 2 seconds it took for her to hear it. A sound, faint, rhythmic, coming from the direction of the Mercedes, thumping. Martha's foot hit the brake before her brain caught up. She sat there, engine idling, staring at the Mercedes. The thumping came again, deliberate, desperate. Someone was in that car. Someone was trying to get out. "This is so stupid," Martha whispered to herself. But she was already pulling over, already reaching for her phone even though she had no signal. Already opening her car door and stepping out into the morning air that smelled like oil and rust and something else. Something metallic and wrong. Blood. Martha had spent enough time in hospitals to recognize the smell. She approached the Mercedes slowly, every nerve screaming at her to get back in her car and leave. The thumping came again, weaker this time. From the trunk. "Hello," Martha called out, voice steadier than she felt. Is someone in there? The thumping intensified. A muffled sound. Human. Definitely human. Someone trying to scream through what sounded like a gag. Martha circled the car, checking for threats, for anyone watching. The street was empty. Just her, the Mercedes, and whoever was trapped inside. The trunk release was inside the car. Martha opened the driver's door fully, and that's when she saw it. Blood on the leather seats. Not a lot, but enough. Smeared handprints on the dashboard. Signs of a struggle. Her hands shook as she searched for the trunk release. Found it near the driver's seat and popped it. The trunk opened with a hydraulic hiss, and Martha's medical training was the only thing that kept her from screaming. A man lay curled in the trunk, wrists bound with zip ties, ankles tied, a cloth gag in his mouth. Korean, she registered automatically. Late 20s. Expensive suit now soaked with blood from multiple wounds. She could see at least 3 stab wounds in his torso, another on his thigh. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, but the other eye, dark and fierce and absolutely aware, locked onto hers with desperate intensity. Oh, God, Martha breathed. Oh, God, okay. She was already moving, pulling her keys from her pocket to cut the zip ties. Her hands found his neck, checking for a pulse. Rapid, thready, but there. He was going into shock, had probably been here for hours. Blood loss, possible internal injuries. Who knew what else? The man made a sound against the gag, urgent and insistent. Martha pulled it free and he immediately gasped. Enemies. They could come back. Not safe. You need to. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. I need to get you to a hospital, Martha interrupted. Can you move? Can you help me get you out of here? No hospital, too dangerous. They'll find. He coughed again, harder this time, and Martha saw more blood. Internal bleeding, definitely. Listen to me, Martha said, using her nurse voice. Firm, brooking no argument. You have multiple stab wounds and you're losing blood. Without treatment, you'll be dead in an hour. Maybe less. So we can argue about hospitals or you can help me save your life. Your choice, but choose fast. Something in his good eyes shifted. Assessment, maybe, or respect. He nodded weakly. Okay, but not the closest hospital. St. Vincent's, across town. I have people there. St. Vincent's was a 30-minute drive on a good day. With morning traffic, maybe 45. Martha did the math in her head. His blood pressure, the location of the wounds, the way his breathing was becoming more labored. He might not make it, but staying here definitely meant death. St. Vincent's, she agreed, but if you die in my car, I'm going to be very upset about the upholstery. His laugh was more of a wheeze, but it was something. Martha got her arms under him, surprised by how heavy muscle and dead weight could be. He tried to help, got his legs over the edge of the trunk, but nearly collapsed when his feet hit the ground. Martha caught him, took his full weight, and half dragged, half carried him to her Civic. Getting him into the passenger seat was a study in coordination and desperation. He was maybe 6 feet tall and solid muscle under the expensive suit. Martha was 5'6" and strong from years of lifting patients. But this was different. This was a man who'd been stabbed multiple times trying not to bleed out in her car while she maneuvered him into position. Seatbelt, she panted, reaching across him to buckle him in. His head lolled against the headrest, but his good eye tracked her movements. Stay with me, you hear me? Stay awake. Tell me your name. Ji-hoon. His voice was fading. Ji-hoon. Okay, Ji-hoon, I'm Martha. And you're going to be fine because I didn't stop my car and drag you out of a trunk just to have you die on me. Understood? She was already in the driver's seat, engine roaring to life. The Civic protested as she threw it into drive and floored it. The access road flew by. Then she was back on surface streets, weaving through traffic with one hand on the wheel and one hand pressed against the worst of Ji-hoon's wounds. Talk to me, Martha commanded. Tell me what happened. Who did this? Business. Disagreement. Ji-hoon's words were slurred now. They wanted. I wouldn't. Doesn't matter. It matters if they're going to come after you at the hospital. It matters if helping you puts me in danger. Martha ran a red light, horns blaring around her. So tell me, am I going to regret this? Ji-hoon's head turned toward her, and even through the pain and blood loss, his gaze was sharp. Probably, but you're not the type to leave someone to die. I can see it. Medical training? Nursing school, 3 years in, 1 to go. Another red light. And you're right, I can't leave someone to die, but I also can't afford to lose my job, get arrested, or end up murdered by whoever put you in that trunk. So give me something, Ji-hoon. Give me a reason to believe this isn't the worst decision I've ever made. I'll make it right. His voice was barely audible now. Whatever this costs you, time, money, safety, I'll make it right, I promise. I'm going to hold you to that, Martha said. But Ji-hoon didn't respond. His eye had closed, his breathing shallow and rapid. Martha pressed harder on the wound, felt warm blood seeping between her fingers, and drove faster. St. Vincent's Medical Center appeared like salvation, modern glass and steel rising against the morning sky. Martha pulled up to the emergency entrance, already shouting before she'd fully stopped the car. I need help. Stabbing victim. Multiple wounds. Severe blood loss. The response was immediate and professional. ER staff materialized with a gurney, hands already assessing, questions firing. Martha let them take over, stepping back as they worked, watching them cut away Ji-hoon's expensive suit and revealing the full extent of the damage. 3 stab wounds in the torso, 1 in the thigh, defensive wounds on his hands and arms. Whoever had done this had meant to kill him. Are you family? A nurse asked Martha, clipboard in hand. No, I just found him. In a car trunk. On Hobart Street. The words sounded insane even as she said them. The nurse's expression didn't change. She'd probably heard worse. We'll need a statement for the police. Can you wait? Police? Right. Because of course there would be police. Martha nodded numbly, watching as they wheeled Ji-hoon through the automatic doors. Just before he disappeared, his head turned slightly, that fierce dark eye finding hers one more time. She couldn't read the expression, couldn't understand what he was trying to communicate. Then he was gone. Martha looked down at herself. Blood covered her hands, her uniform, probably her face. She smelled like iron and fear, and she was now officially 2 hours late for work. Ma'am, the ER receptionist called out. The patient, they're taking him into emergency surgery. He's O negative blood type and we're critically low. You wouldn't happen to be O negative, Martha said automatically. Universal donor. Would you be willing to donate? He's lost a significant amount of blood, and our supplies are, yes. Martha didn't even think about it. Yes, of course. They led her to a donation area, cleaned her up, and stuck a needle in her arm. Martha watched her blood flow through the tube. Type O negative, the universal donor, the blood that could save anyone, and thought about the strange turns life took. She'd left her apartment planning to serve eggs and coffee. Instead, she was donating blood to save a man who'd been left to die in a car trunk. You did a good thing, the phlebotomist said. Most people would have kept driving. Most people are probably smarter than me, Martha replied. The donation took 15 minutes. Then came the police. 2 detectives, 1 Korean and 1 white, both looking at Martha with a special suspicion cops reserved for civilians involved in violent crimes. They took her statement, the shortcut, the abandoned car, the thumping from the trunk. Yes, she'd cut his bonds. No, she didn't know him. No, she didn't see anyone else. Yes, she understood this was an active investigation. Miss Williams, the Korean detective, his badge said Detective Park, leaned forward. You understand that the man you saved is Ji-hoon. Does that name mean anything to you? Should it? Park exchanged a look with his partner. Ji-hoon runs one of the largest Korean organized crime families in Los Angeles, what you call the Mafia. He's been under investigation for racketeering, money laundering, and suspected involvement in at least 3 murders. You saved a very dangerous man's life today. The words hung in the air. Martha processed them slowly, thinking about the expensive suit, the business disagreement, the way Ji-hoon had said he had people at St. Vincent's. Of course. Of course he was a criminal. Because why would anything in her life be simple? I didn't know, Martha said carefully. I just saw someone dying and did what I was trained to do. We understand that, Park's partner said. You're not in trouble. But Miss Williams, you need to be careful. The people who did this to Mr. G, they're still out there. And they might see you as a witness, or worse, as someone with value to him. We can offer protection if— I can't afford protection, Martha interrupted. I can barely afford my rent. I have classes, work, a life. I can't hide from maybe threats by maybe criminals. Then be smart, Park said. Vary your routes, watch for tails. If anyone approaches you asking about today, you call us immediately. He handed her a card. And Miss Williams, stay away from Ji-hoon. Whatever gratitude he might feel, it's not worth what his world will cost you. They left her in the waiting room, still wearing her blood-stained uniform, with 17 missed calls from Phyllis and a growing certainty that her life had just become infinitely more complicated. Phyllis fired her over the phone. 2 hours late, Martha? Without even a call? I don't care if you were saving lives or meeting Jesus himself. That's unacceptable. The line went dead before Martha could explain that she'd literally been saving a life, though maybe leaving out the crime boss detail was wise. Martha sat in the hospital cafeteria. She couldn't bring herself to leave yet, drinking terrible coffee and staring at her phone. Her bank account showed $842. Her rent was $1,100 due in 2 weeks. Her car payment was $200. Tuition was $2,300, due in 1 month. The math didn't work even before losing her job. Martha Williams? A voice interrupted her spiral. Martha looked up to find an elegant Korean woman in her 40s, wearing a designer suit and an expression of polite concern. I'm Song Mi-kyung. I work for Ji-hoon. Of course she did. Martha gestured to the empty chair. Let me guess. He wants to see me? He's still in surgery, but he left instructions before going under that. If he survived, you were to be properly compensated for your assistance. Mi-kyung placed an envelope on the table. $50,000, a small token of appreciation. Martha stared at the envelope like it might explode. I can't accept this. Why not? You saved his life, lost your job in the process, yes, we know, and potentially put yourself at risk. This is the minimum you're owed. Because accepting money from a crime boss for saving his life feels like the beginning of a very bad movie. Mi-kyung's smile was thin. Miss Williams, Ji-hoon is many things, but he pays his debts. This is not a transaction with strings attached. It's gratitude. You're free to refuse, but consider. You have no job, significant expenses, and a kind heart that will undoubtedly lead you to help someone else in need very soon. This money could give you breathing room, security, options. Martha's hand hovered over the envelope. Everything Mi-kyung said was true, and $50,000 would solve every immediate problem in her life. But it would also tie her to Ji-hoon, to his world in ways she couldn't predict. I want to see him first, Martha said. When he wakes up, I want to hear him say this comes with no obligations. Fair enough. Mi-kyung stood. He should be out of surgery in a few hours. I'll have someone notify you. In the meantime, might I suggest purchasing a new uniform? Yours is somewhat compromised. Martha looked down at the dried blood covering her baby blue dress. Right. She couldn't exactly wear this home. She took the envelope, temporarily, she told herself, and found the hospital gift shop, where she bought an overpriced UCLA hoodie and sweatpants. In the bathroom, she changed, stuffed her ruined uniform in the trash, and stared at her reflection. Her dark skin was pallid beneath the fluorescent lights. Her natural hair, usually carefully maintained in twist-outs, was a mess. She had blood under her fingernails still. She looked like someone who'd had the worst day of her life, which wasn't entirely inaccurate. Martha's phone buzzed. Bria, her roommate. Girl, where are you? Phyllis called the apartment screaming about you being fired. WTF happened? Martha typed back. Long story. I'll be home soon. Don't wait up. But she didn't leave. Instead, she bought more terrible coffee and waited, because some part of her needed to see Ji-hoon alive and recovering, needed confirmation that her choice to stop, to help, had actually saved a life, even if that life belonged to a criminal. 3 hours later, Mi-kyung found her. He's in recovery, awake, asking for you. Ji-hoon looked better than any man who'd been stabbed 3 times had a right to look. He was propped up in a private room, of course it was private, surrounded by monitors and IV drips, his torso wrapped in bandages. The swelling around his eye had gone down slightly, revealing features that were sharply handsome even under the circumstances. He was watching the door when Martha entered, as if he'd been waiting. "Martha Williams," he said, voice rough but steady. "You came back. I wanted to make sure I didn't ruin my car upholstery for nothing." Martha stayed near the door, maintaining distance. "How are you feeling?" "Like I was stabbed 3 times and put in a trunk to die." His smile was slight but genuine. "Thanks to you, I'm feeling it while alive instead of while dead. The doctor said another hour and I wouldn't have made it. Your blood saved me, literally. Anyone would have done the same. No, most people would have kept driving. You stopped. You helped someone you didn't know, at significant personal cost. That's not common. That's exceptional." His dark eyes held hers. "Mi-kyung told me about your job. I'm sorry. That's my fault." "It's not your fault someone stabbed you and left you to die. It's my fault you got involved." Ji-hoon shifted slightly, wincing at the movement. "Which is why I want to make it right. The money is yours, no strings. But more than that, if you want another job, I can arrange it. Better pay, better hours. Or if you'd rather, I can ensure your nursing school is fully funded. Whatever you need." Martha crossed her arms. "Detective Park told me who you are, what you do." I imagine he painted a very dark picture. Racketeering, money laundering, 3 murders. Martha kept her voice level. Was he wrong? He wasn't entirely accurate. Ji-hoon's expression didn't change. But he wasn't entirely wrong either. I run a family business that operates in gray areas. Some of what we do is illegal. Some of it is necessary. All of it is complicated. That's not a denial. No, it's not. You deserve honesty, Martha. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you, but I'm also not the monster Park thinks I am. I protect my people. I invest in my community. And I follow a code even if it's not the law. Martha studied him. This man who'd been left to die and who spoke about criminal activity with the calm of someone discussing the weather. "The people who did this to you, will they come after me?" "No." Ji-hoon's voice was hard, certain. "I've already made sure they understand you're untouchable, that hurting you would bring consequences they can't imagine. You're protected, Martha, whether you accept anything else from me or not. That much I guarantee." "Why? I'm nobody, a random stranger who happened to drive past. You're the person who saved my life when you could have kept driving. That makes you somebody to me." His intensity was almost physical. "I pay my debts, Martha. Always, completely. If you want nothing from me, I'll respect that. But know that I owe you everything, and I don't take that lightly." The envelope with $50,000 felt heavy in Martha's hoodie pocket. She pulled it out, held it up. "This is a lot of money. It's nothing compared to a life. It's life-changing for me. Rent, tuition, breathing room, everything I need." Martha stepped closer to the bed. "But accepting it means accepting a connection to you, to your world. And I don't know if I can do that." "Then don't." Ji-hoon's expression was unreadable. "Take the money, get your life in order, and walk away. I won't contact you again. You'll be protected from a distance, but you won't have to see me or think about me or be part of any of this. It's the least complicated option." "Is that what you want? For me to take the money and disappear?" Something flickered across Ji-hoon's face. "What I want is irrelevant. You've already done more than anyone had a right to ask. The rest is your choice." Martha should have taken the easy out, should have pocketed the money, walked away, and never looked back. Instead, she found herself saying, "I don't take money for doing the right thing. But if you really want to repay me, here's what I need. My tuition paid for my final year. a job that works around my class schedule, and a promise that whatever protection you're offering doesn't come with expectations. Done. Ji-hoon didn't hesitate. All of it. Mi-kyung will handle the details. Is there anything else? Yeah. Tell me why someone wanted you dead badly enough to stab you 3 times. Ji-hoon's smile was sharp. Rival organization thought they could move into my territory while I was distracted with other business. They were wrong. Today was their final message before I shut them down permanently. It didn't go as they planned. Will there be more attacks? No. This ends now. Permanently. The way he said it sent chills down Martha's spine. Not a threat, just certainty. The kind of certainty that came from having the power to end problems definitively. Okay. Martha turned to leave, then paused. Ji-hoon, try not to get stabbed again. I've got classes to attend. His laugh was rough but genuine. I'll do my best. Thank you, Martha, for everything. Mi-kyung was waiting outside the room. Well, did you reach an agreement? Tuition and a job, Martha said. That's all I'm accepting. Very well. The tuition will be handled directly with your university. As for the job, I run several legitimate businesses for Ji-hoon. One of them is a medical supply company. We need someone to handle customer relations, inventory management, and clinical liaison work. It would be perfect for a nursing student, and it pays $32 an hour with flexible hours. Martha's mind raced. $32 an hour was nearly triple what she'd made at the diner. Flexible hours meant she could actually attend all her classes. It was almost too perfect. This isn't some front for illegal activity, is it? It's a completely legitimate business. I'll give you access to our tax records, licenses, everything. We supply hospitals, clinics, and nursing homes throughout Southern California. It's boring, legal, and stable. Mi-kyung handed Martha a business card. Come by Monday morning. I'll show you around. Introduce you to the team. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of change. Martha started at Med Solutions, Mi-kyung's medical supply company, and found it exactly as described. Legitimate, boring, and surprisingly perfect for her skills. She coordinated with hospitals, managed inventory systems, and helped train new clinical staff. Her coworkers were friendly, professional, and had no idea their ultimate boss was a crime lord recovering from stab wounds. Her tuition was paid in full, a wire transfer from an anonymous donor that her university's financial aid office accepted without question. Martha's academic advisor actually cried when she told her she could finally focus on school full-time. Do you know how rare this is? She'd said. Students like you, working so hard and finally getting the break you deserve. Martha didn't tell her the break came from a man she'd found bleeding in a trunk. She didn't see Ji-hoon at all. Sometimes she'd catch glimpses of his world. Mi-kyung taking hushed phone calls or the way certain people deferred to even the mention of his name. But he'd kept his word. No contact, no expectations, no strings attached. Just the job, the tuition, and the ghost of protection she couldn't see but knew was there. It should have been perfect. Instead, Martha found herself wondering, how was he healing? Had there been retaliation? Was he safe? Questions she had no business asking about a man she'd saved once and would probably never see again. You're distracted, her study partner Thomas said one evening as they reviewed cardiovascular protocols. You've read the same page 4 times. Just tired, Martha lied. But Thomas was right. She was distracted, and the distraction had dark eyes and sharp features, and a voice that said, I pay my debts, like a promise written in blood. Week 4 changed everything. Martha was leaving class, advanced pharmacology, a brutal 3-hour seminar, when she saw the car. Black Mercedes, different from the one she'd found on Hobart Street, but similar enough to make her heart race. It was parked across from the nursing building, engine running, windows tinted. She should have kept walking, should have called campus security or Detective Park, or literally anyone. Instead, Martha approached the car as the passenger window rolled down, revealing Ji-hoon in the back seat. He looked different, healed mostly. The bruises faded, the swelling gone. Back in an expensive suit, perfectly tailored, like the stabbing had been a minor inconvenience. But his eyes held something new when they found hers. Uncertainty, maybe, or hope. Hello, Martha. Ji-hoon, you're not supposed to be here. No contact, remember? I know. I'm breaking my own rule. He gestured to the open door. Can we talk? Just for a few minutes. Every instinct screamed danger, but Martha found herself sliding into the back seat beside him, the door closing behind her with a solid thunk. The interior smelled like leather in his cologne, something expensive and shrouding. How's the recovery? Martha asked, maintaining professional distance. Complete, thanks to you. Ji-hoon's smile was slight. The doctors were impressed by how well I healed. Good blood, they said. Universal donor quality. That's not how blood types work. I know, but it made me think about debt, about what I owe you beyond money or jobs or protection. He turned to face her fully. Martha, I can't stop thinking about you, about the moment I opened my eyes in that trunk and saw you, about the way you didn't hesitate, didn't judge, just acted, about your hands steady on my wounds while you drove, about the strength it took to save someone you'd never met. Martha's breath caught. Ji-hoon, I'm not asking for anything, he interrupted. I just needed you to know. That meeting you changed something in me, made me want to be worthy of the life you saved, made me question choices I've made, paths I've taken. You're extraordinary, Martha Williams, and I wanted you to hear that from me. The confession hung in the air. Martha should have deflected, made a joke, maintained distance. Instead, she heard herself say, I think about you too, about whether you're safe, whether you're healing, whether I made the right choice stopping that day. And I don't know what that means, but I know I can't stop. Ji-hoon's expression transformed, surprise melting into something intense and warm. Then let me take you to dinner. No business, no obligations. Just two people who met under extraordinary circumstances and want to know each other better? Say yes, Martha. This is a terrible idea. Probably, but you're not the type to play it safe. You stopped on an abandoned road. You saved a stranger's life. You agreed to work for someone Detective Park warned you against. So why start being careful now? He was right, and Martha hated that he was right. One dinner, but somewhere public, and I'm taking my own car. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I'll text you the address. Ji-hoon's smile was genuine, transforming his severe features. Thank you, Martha, for giving me a chance. She climbed out of the Mercedes, legs shaky, mind racing. What had she just agreed to? Dinner with a crime boss. Dating. Was this dating? A man who lived in a world of violence and shadows. A man who'd been left to die in a trunk just weeks ago. But as the Mercedes pulled away, Martha couldn't deny the flutter in her chest, the spark of anticipation for tomorrow night. The restaurant Ji-hoon chose was an upscale Korean BBQ place in mid-city, modern and elegant without being ostentatious. Martha dressed carefully, a deep burgundy dress that was professional enough for plausible deniability, but feminine enough to acknowledge this wasn't just business. Her natural hair was styled in a high puff, and she'd actually put on makeup, something she rarely bothered with anymore. Ji-hoon was waiting at a private table in the back. He stood when she approached. Full suit again, charcoal gray this time, perfectly tailored. His eyes traveled over her with open appreciation, and Martha felt heat rise to her cheeks. You're beautiful, he said simply. I mean, I knew that. But seeing you here, not covered in my blood or wearing scrubs, you're stunning. Flattery will get you everywhere, Martha said, sliding into her seat. Or nowhere. I haven't decided yet. Ji-hoon laughed. Fair enough. Thank you for coming. The meal started awkwardly. What do you say to someone whose life you saved? How do you make small talk with a crime boss? But gradually conversation found its rhythm. Ji-hoon asked about her studies, and Martha found herself explaining cardiovascular nursing with more enthusiasm than the topic probably warranted. You light up when you talk about it, Ji-hoon observed. Medicine, helping people. It's not just a career for you, is it? No, it's Martha struggled to articulate it. Growing up, my grandmother had diabetes, couldn't afford good care, couldn't navigate the system. I watched her deteriorate not because medicine couldn't help her, but because she couldn't access it. When she died, I promised myself I'd be the person who helped people like her, who made sure everyone got the care they deserved, regardless of money or insurance or any of it. That's why you stopped, Ji-hoon said quietly. On that road, you couldn't drive past someone dying because you've spent your life trying to prevent exactly that. Maybe, or maybe I'm just bad at minding my own business. Whatever the reason, I'm grateful. Ji-hoon reached across the table, not touching, but close. Can I ask you something personal? You just told me I'm beautiful and asked about my dead grandmother. I think we're past polite distance. He smiled. Why aren't you dating anyone? Someone as smart, beautiful, and compassionate as you should have men lining up. Martha snorted. You'd think, but most men here nursing student working full-time and run. Too busy, too driven, too serious. The ones who don't run usually want me to abandon my goals, be more flexible. There was one guy, Brandon, who seemed promising, until he told me I needed to smile more and not be so intense about school. We didn't last long after that. Brandon was an idiot, Ji-hoon said flatly. Your intensity is what makes you exceptional. Anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve you. And you can see it? After knowing me for a month? I saw it the moment you pulled me out of that trunk. Saw the determination in your eyes, the steadiness of your hands. Saw someone who doesn't just talk about helping people. You actually do it. Consequences be damned. He leaned back. That kind of strength is rare. Says the man who runs organized crime. Touché. Ji-hoon's expression turned serious. Can I tell you something? About me, about my world? I'm listening. I didn't choose this life. I inherited it. My father built our organization from nothing. It came to America with nothing, faced discrimination and violence, and created something that protected our community. When he was killed, rival gang, 5 years ago, I was 23 and suddenly responsible for hundreds of people who depended on us. Martha stayed quiet, letting him speak. At first, I tried to honor his legacy exactly as it was. Every rule, every tradition, every deal. But I started seeing the cost. The violence, the families destroyed, the communities hurt. So I began changing things, slowly, carefully, moving toward legitimate businesses, protecting instead of extorting, building instead of taking. That's why someone tried to kill you, Martha said. You were changing the rules. Yes, and there are people who don't want change, who profit from the old ways. But Martha, I'm not my father. I don't want an empire built on fear. I want something better. For my people, for my community, for myself. And you think I can help with that? Ji-hoon met her eyes directly. I think meeting you showed me what's possible. That there are people in the world who act out of pure compassion, who risk everything for strangers, who make choices based on what's right instead of what's safe. You inspire me, Martha. Make me want to be worthy of the life you saved. The weight of his words settled over the table. Martha processed them, this confession from a man who lived in shadows but seemed desperate to find light. I can't save you, she said finally. Not in that way. I saved your life once, but I can't be responsible for redeeming it. That's on you. I know. I'm not asking you to save me. I'm asking for a chance to know you, to show you that I'm more than what Detective Park thinks, to explore whatever this is between us without expectations or obligations. Just a chance. Martha should have said no, should have recognized the danger, the impossibility, the inevitable complications. But looking at Ji-hoon, this powerful, dangerous man who spoke about redemption and looked at her like she was something precious, she found herself nodding. A chance, she agreed. But Ji-hoon, I need you to understand something. I won't be part of anything illegal. I won't turn a blind eye to violence. And if being with you means compromising who I am, I'll walk away. No matter how I feel. I wouldn't want you any other way. His smile was soft, genuine. Your integrity is part of what drew me to you. I'd never ask you to compromise it. They talked for hours. About his mother who died when he was young. About Martha's father who'd left when she was 10. About dreams deferred and responsibilities accepted. About favorite foods and terrible movies and the thousand small things that make up a life. And slowly, impossibly, Martha felt something shifting. Not just attraction, though God knew that was there, crackling in every glance and careful non-touch, but something deeper. Connection, recognition, the sense of meeting someone who understood. When Ji-hoon walked her to her car, he kept careful distance, respecting boundaries. But at her door, he hesitated. Can I see you again? Soon? Yes, Martha said without thinking. Tomorrow? His smile was brilliant. Tomorrow. I'll pick you up after class. He waited until she was safely in her car, engine running, before heading to his own vehicle. Martha watched him in her rearview mirror, this man who'd somehow become important to her in the span of weeks, and wondered what she was getting herself into. The next month was a study in contradictions. Martha's days were structured, predictable, classes, studying, work at Med Solutions. But her evenings belonged to Ji-hoon, and they were anything but predictable. He showed her parts of Koreatown tourists never saw. Small restaurants where the owners greeted him with deep respect. Community centers he funded anonymously. Youth programs that kept kids off streets and out of gangs. And slowly, Martha began understanding the complexity of his world. Yes, there was crime, but there was also protection, investment, genuine care for a community that mainstream America had largely ignored. You see why I can't just walk away, Ji-hoon said one night as they watched kids at a basketball program he sponsored. These families depend on us, not for criminal activity, but for support the system doesn't provide. Jobs, education, protection from actual predators. If I dismantle everything, what happens to them? You transition, Martha said. Slowly. Keep the good parts. Eliminate the harmful ones. It's not all or nothing. That's what I'm trying to do. But it's complicated. Everything worth doing is. They hadn't kissed yet. Ji-hoon was cautious, deliberate, treating Martha with a respect that bordered on reverence. He'd hold her hand, brush hair from her face, look at her like she was something precious. But he never pushed, never assumed, always gave her control. It was driving Martha insane. Week 6, she finally broke. They were in his penthouse. She'd been curious, and he'd offered to cook her dinner. The space was masculine, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. They'd eaten kalbi that Ji-hoon prepared himself, laughing as he told embarrassing stories about learning to cook from his grandmother. Now they stood by those windows. The city lights spread below them, and Martha couldn't take it anymore. Ji-hoon, yes? Kiss me. He turned to her, eyes wide with surprise. Martha, I don't want to rush. I'm not asking you to rush. I'm asking you to kiss me. Now, before I lose my nerve. His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones with devastating gentleness. You're sure? I found you bleeding in a trunk, saved your life with my own blood, and spent 6 weeks falling for you despite every logical reason not to. Yes, Ji-hoon, I'm sure. He kissed her then, and it was worth every moment of waiting. Soft at first, testing, then deeper as Martha's arms wrapped around his neck, and his hands slid to her waist, pulling her close. She could feel his heartbeat against her chest, rapid and strong. The heartbeat that had almost stopped on that abandoned road. The heartbeat she'd saved. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Ji-hoon rested his forehead against hers. I'm in love with you, he said quietly. I know it's too soon. I know it's complicated. But Martha, I'm completely in love with you. Martha's heart raced. She should be scared, should pull back, should protect herself. Instead, she heard herself say, I'm in love with you too, and it's absolutely terrifying. They spent the night talking, kissing, building something that felt both inevitable and impossible. Ji-hoon told her about the pressures of his world, The constant balancing act between old and new, violence and peace. Martha shared her dreams for after graduation, the kind of nurse she wanted to be, the clinic she hoped to open someday in underserved communities. I'll help you, Ji-hoon said. When you're ready, funding, connections, whatever you need. I don't want your money. I'm not offering money. I'm offering partnership. You have the vision and skills. I have resources. Together we could build something that actually helps people instead of just profiting from them. It was seductive, this vision he painted. A life where her skills and his resources combined to create real change. But Martha knew the danger of mixing worlds, of letting his money and power influence her path. Let me graduate first, she said. Let me prove I can do this on my own. Then we'll talk about partnerships. Fair enough. Ji-hoon pulled her close. I can wait. I'm good at waiting for things that matter. But fate, apparently, wasn't interested in waiting. Week 8, everything fell apart. Martha was leaving Med Solutions when Detective Park appeared, his expression grim. Miss Williams, we need to talk. They sat in his unmarked car, tension thick. I warned you, Park said. Stay away from Ji-hoon, but you didn't listen. My personal life is none of your business. It is when your boyfriend is under federal investigation. FBI's building a RICO case, Martha. They're looking at everyone in Ji-hoon's orbit, including you. The words hit like a physical blow. I haven't done anything illegal. Doesn't matter. Association is enough for them to make your life hell. They'll subpoena your records, question your friends, audit your finances. They'll look at that tuition payment and job and see criminal proceeds, not gratitude. And if they can't get Ji-hoon directly, they'll pressure everyone around him, including you. Martha's mind raced. What do you want from me? Help us. Give us information about his operations, his associates, his plans. In exchange, we protect you, get you immunity. You want me to betray him. I want you to save yourself. Park's expression softened slightly. Martha, I've seen this story before. Good person falls for bad man, thinks love will change him. It never does. They just get dragged down with him. Is that what you want? I want to go home. Think about it. You have my number. But Martha, time's running out. The FBI moves fast, and when they do, anyone caught in the crossfire gets burned. Martha didn't tell Ji-hoon about Park's visit. Not immediately. Instead, she spent 3 days in turmoil, classes and work passing in a blur while her mind spun. Could she betray someone she loved? Could she stand by while he potentially went to prison? Was there a third option she couldn't see? On the 3rd day, she finally called him. We need to talk, in person. They met at his penthouse. Martha paced while Ji-hoon watched, patient and concerned. Finally, she told him everything. Park's visit, the FBI investigation, the offer to turn informant. When she finished, Ji-hoon was quiet for a long moment. Then he said simply, You should do it. Martha stopped pacing. What? Take the deal. Give them whatever they want. Protect yourself. You can't be serious. Martha, I knew this was coming. The FBI's been circling for months. It's only a matter of time before they move. And when they do, I don't want you caught in it. So yes, take the deal. Save yourself. I'll survive prison if it comes to that. That's your solution? I betray you, you go to prison, and we what? Write letters. I don't have a better one. Ji-hoon's voice was strained. I told you I was falling for you. That wasn't a lie. But I also told you I wouldn't let my world destroy you. This is me keeping that promise. Martha felt tears burning. You're an idiot. A noble, self-sacrificing idiot. I've been called worse. He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. Martha, listen to me. I've accepted that my choices have consequences. But you have a future, a career that will help thousands of people, dreams that will change lives. I won't let a relationship with me destroy that. What if I don't want to be saved? What if I want to fight this with you? Then you'd be making a mistake I can't let you make. His hands framed her face. I love you, which means I want what's best for you, even if that's not me. They stood like that, holding each other, while the city lights flickered below. And Martha understood that love sometimes meant impossible choices, that caring for someone meant wanting their happiness even at the cost of your own, that some battles couldn't be fought together. But she wasn't ready to give up yet. Martha spent the next week researching. She talked to lawyers, read case files, studied RICO statutes, used her nursing student resources to access legal databases, and slowly a plan formed. She called Park. "I'll help you, but on my terms." They met in a coffee shop, neutral territory. Martha laid out her conditions. "I'll wear a wire. Get you recordings of Ji-hoon discussing his legitimate businesses, community programs, transition plans. Show the FBI that he's actively moving away from criminal activity, not to protect him from consequences, but to show context, to prove he's more than just a target." Park frowned. "That's not what the FBI wants." "I don't care what the FBI wants. I care about truth. And the truth is that Ji-hoon isn't some cartoon villain. He's a man trying to extract himself from a legacy he inherited while protecting people who depend on him. You want my cooperation? That's the deal. This could backfire spectacularly. Then we'll burn together. Are you in or not?" Park studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but Martha, if this goes wrong, I can't protect you. I'm not asking for protection. I'm asking for truth to matter." The wire was uncomfortable, a small device taped under her clothes. Martha met Ji-hoon at his usual restaurant, nervous and determined. They talked about his businesses, his plans, his vision for the future. And Martha guided the conversation, asking questions that would showcase his complexity, his humanity, his genuine desire for change. "You're interviewing me," Ji-hoon said suddenly, eyes narrowing. "Why?" Martha's heart stopped. Had he sensed the wire? Figured out her plan? "I want to understand," she said carefully. "Your world, your choices, your vision. Is that wrong?" Ji-hoon studied her, and for a terrifying moment, Martha thought he knew. Then his expression softened. "No, it's not wrong. I'm not used to people wanting to understand instead of judge." They talked for 3 hours. About his father's death, his mother's sacrifices, his sister who'd looked up to him, about the weight of responsibility and the cost of legacy, about dreams of legitimacy and the painful slowness of change. And Martha recorded all of it. This complex picture of a man trying to be better than his circumstances. When they parted, Ji-hoon kissed her softly. "I love you, Martha Williams. Whatever happens, know that meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me." "I love you too," Martha whispered, feeling the wire heavy against her skin. "More than I knew was possible." She turned the recording over to Park, who listened with an expression that shifted from skepticism to surprise to something like respect. "This is good," he admitted. "Really good. Shows nuance, context. The FBI might not like it, but it's the kind of evidence that complicates narratives. Makes it harder to paint him as purely criminal. Will it help? Maybe. Depends on what else they have. But Martha, you just gave them ammunition to use against him too. His own words about his organization, his admissions of past crimes. This cuts both ways." Martha had known that risk, had accepted it, because truth was complicated, and she couldn't protect Ji-hoon by hiding who he was. Only by showing all of it, the darkness and the light. The FBI moved 2 weeks later. Raids across the city, dozens of arrests, front-page news. Martha watched from her apartment as CNN showed footage of federal agents storming properties, seizing records, making arrests. And her phone stayed silent. For 2 days, she heard nothing. No calls, no texts, no news about Ji-hoon. Detective Park wouldn't return her calls. Mikyung's phone went to voicemail. Martha existed in an agony of not knowing. On the 3rd day, there was a knock on her door. Martha opened it to find Ji-hoon standing there, looking exhausted but free. "You're not in jail." "No, thanks to you, apparently." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The FBI came with warrants, prepared for war, But someone had given them evidence of our legitimate operations, transition plans, community investment, context that complicated their narrative. My lawyer says it's the only reason they didn't arrest me immediately. Martha's throat tightened. Ji-hoon, it was you. Not a question. You wore a wire, recorded our conversations. Yes. She waited for anger, for betrayal, for him to walk away. Instead, Ji-hoon pulled her into his arms. Thank you. You're thanking me. I could have sent you to prison. You saved me. Again. He pulled back to look at her. Martha, the FBI was building a case on partial information. They were going to paint me as pure criminal, ignore everything else. But your recordings showed complexity, showed I'm trying to change. My lawyer says it bought us time, maybe even reasonable doubt. You saved me without betraying who I am. Martha felt tears spilling over. I didn't know if it would help or hurt. I just knew I couldn't lie about who you are. Good and bad, all of it. That's why I love you. Ji-hoon kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Because you see all of me and still choose to stay. They held each other as the sun set over Los Angeles. Two people from different worlds who'd found something worth fighting for. The FBI's investigation continued, but the narrative had shifted. Ji-hoon wasn't just a criminal anymore. He was a complex figure, a man transitioning, a leader trying to protect his community while changing its foundation. What happens now? Martha asked. I don't know. Legal battles, probably. Scrutiny, definitely. But Martha, I'm done with the criminal side. Completely. Your recordings made me see how I sound, the rationalizations I make. I want to be the man you described, the one trying to change. Not just trying, succeeding. That's going to be hard. Everything worth doing is, someone wise told me that once. The next year was transformation. Ji-hoon systematically dismantled his criminal operations, transitioning to entirely legitimate businesses. It cost him. Alliances broken, old associates angry, profits diminished. But Martha stood beside him, finishing her degree while watching him become someone new. She graduated with honors, top of her class. Ji-hoon was there, in the audience, cheering louder than anyone when she walked across the stage. And afterward, he presented her with a gift, keys to a small building in Koreatown. What is this? Your clinic. Fully equipped, fully funded for 3 years. A place where anyone can get care regardless of ability to pay. Your dream, Martha. Ready to become reality. Martha toured the space. Examination rooms, a small pharmacy, a waiting area decorated with warmth and care. Everything she'd ever wanted, handed to her by a man who'd once run the criminal underworld. I can't accept this. Yes, you can. It's not charity, Martha. It's investment. In you, in the community, in a future where we both use our resources to help instead of harm. Please, let me do this one good thing. She looked at him. This man who'd been left to die in a trunk and who'd transformed his life because she'd shown him another way. Okay, but I'm naming it myself. Deal. What will you call it? Second Chance Community Health, because everyone deserves one. Ji-hoon's smile was brilliant. Perfect. When do we open? We? I'm your financial backer and volunteer coordinator. Of course I'm part of this. The clinic opened 6 months later. Martha hired a diverse staff, other nursing students, doctors from underserved communities, interpreters, and advocates. They offered everything from basic checkups to chronic disease management, mental health services to addiction treatment. Everything her grandmother never had access to. Word spread quickly. Within weeks, they were seeing 50 patients a day. Within months, they'd expanded to offer evening and weekend hours. Within a year, they were a lifeline for hundreds of families who'd fallen through the cracks of the American healthcare system. And Martha found her calling, not just in medicine, but in building systems that actually worked. That saw people as humans first, patients second. That recognized healthcare as a right, not a privilege. Ji-hoon helped with everything: funding, connections, problem solving. But he never overshadowed, never controlled. He was her partner in the truest sense. You did it, he said one evening as they closed up the clinic. Built something beautiful. We did it, Martha corrected. Together. The FBI's investigation eventually concluded with a settlement. Ji-hoon paid substantial fines and agreed to permanent oversight of his businesses, but faced no jail time. His cooperation in dismantling criminal networks, combined with evidence of genuine transformation, bought him clemency. Detective Park even visited the clinic one day, off duty, bringing a donation and what might have been an apology in his eyes. 2 years after finding Ji-hoon bleeding in that trunk, Martha stood in his penthouse again. But this time the view was different. Not just the city below, but what they'd built together. The clinic, yes, but also youth programs, scholarship funds, community investment initiatives. A network of legitimate businesses that employed thousands and lifted up the neighborhoods that had once been merely controlled. Martha Williams. Ji-hoon appeared behind her, arms wrapping around her waist. What are you thinking about? About that morning, being late for work, taking the shortcut, hearing you in that trunk. Best worst day of my life. Mine too. She turned in his arms. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd kept driving? Every day. And every day I'm grateful you didn't. His hand came up to cup her face. You saved my life, Martha, in every way that matters. Gave me not just breath, but purpose. Not just existence, but meaning. I was dead long before I ended up in that trunk, just going through motions, following a path I never chose. And then you stopped, and everything changed. You changed yourself. I just showed you it was possible. You showed me it was necessary. Ji-hoon pulled back slightly, reaching into his pocket. Which brings me to something I've been wanting to ask for a while now. Martha's breath caught as he dropped to one knee, pulling out a simple, elegant ring. Not ostentatious, not gaudy, just beautiful and real. Martha Williams, you found me at my absolute worst, bleeding, dying, abandoned. And you didn't just save my life. You showed me how to live it, how to be better, do better, want better. You're the strongest, most compassionate, most extraordinary person I've ever known. And I want to spend the rest of my life earning the chance to be your partner. Will you marry me? Martha looked at the man kneeling before her, the criminal who'd become a philanthropist, the mafia boss who'd become a community leader, the dying stranger who'd become her everything. Yes, she said, voice breaking. Yes, you ridiculous man, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that tasted like promises and second chances. And Martha thought about how lives could change in an instant, how one choice to stop, to help, to care could redirect everything. I have one condition, she said when they broke apart. Anything. No more getting stabbed and left in trunks. Ji-hoon laughed, the sound full and genuine. Deal. Though I can't promise life with me will ever be boring. I don't want boring, I just want real. Then real is what you'll get. Every ugly truth, every beautiful moment, everything in between. That's my promise to you, Martha Williams. Complete honesty and absolute devotion for as long as you'll have me. Forever sounds good. They stood together in that penthouse overlooking a city they'd both changed in different ways. A black woman from Memphis who'd become a healer. A Korean man from generations of crime who'd become a builder. Together, they'd created something impossible. A love that defied circumstances and expectations, that transformed darkness into light. The wedding was small and beautiful, held at the clinic they'd built together. Patients they'd helped stood as witnesses. Staff they'd hired became the wedding party. And Detective Park, in a surprising twist, actually attended, off-duty in civilian clothes with what might have been a smile. Martha wore a simple white dress and her grandmother's pearls. Ji-hoon wore a traditional Korean hanbok, honoring heritage while building something new. And when they exchanged vows, promising to love in sickness and health, for better or worse, they both understood the weight of those words in ways most couples never would. I promise to see you completely, Martha vowed. The good, the bad, the complicated. To love all of it. to stand beside you as you become who you're meant to be, and to never drive past someone in trouble, even if it derails my entire life. I promise to be worthy of the life you saved, Ji-hoon vowed back. To use every day to build instead of destroy, to protect instead of control, to love you with everything I am and everything I'm becoming, and to never ever end up in another trunk. Laughter rippled through the crowd. They kissed as husband and wife, and the clinic's patients cheered, people who existed because Martha had stopped, because Ji-hoon had changed, because love sometimes meant impossible transformations. 5 years later, Martha stood in the now expanded clinic. They'd taken over the entire block, adding dental services, physical therapy, a community kitchen. Around her, staff buzzed with purpose. Patients smiled. Lives were saved in small and large ways. She was the director now, overseeing programs across 3 locations, with plans for 5 more. Ji-hoon appeared at her office door, their 3-year-old daughter on his shoulders. "Mommy's working," he signed. They'd taught their daughter sign language alongside Korean and English, creating a truly multilingual home. "Should we interrupt?" "Always," Martha signed back, opening her arms as their daughter launched herself across the room. She caught her, breathing in the smell of her hair, baby shampoo, and joy. "How was the park?" "Daddy pushed me so high," their daughter said, eyes bright. "I almost touched the sky." "Almost," Ji-hoon agreed, settling into Martha's office chair. "But not quite. We'll try again tomorrow." Martha watched them, her family built from impossible circumstances and choices made in moments of crisis. She thought about that morning 5 years ago. Late for work, taking a shortcut, hearing those desperate thumps from a trunk. How easily she could have kept driving, how different everything would be. "What are you thinking?" Ji-hoon asked, reading her expression. "About how grateful I am that I was late for work that day." He laughed, understanding immediately. "Me too. Though at the time being stabbed and left to die felt considerably less fortunate. It brought us together. It gave me a reason to become someone worth being brought to." Their daughter looked between them, confused by adult talk. "Tell me the story again, about how you met." "You've heard it 100 times, Martha said. "I want to hear it again." So Ji-hoon told it, edited for young ears but still true, about how he was in trouble and Mommy saved him, about how she was brave and strong and didn't leave him when she could have, about how sometimes helping a stranger changes your whole life, and their daughter listened, wide-eyed, to this origin story. This tale of how love could grow from crisis, how families could form from impossible circumstances, how second chances were real if you were brave enough to take them. That night, after their daughter was asleep, Martha and Ji-hoon stood on their balcony. They'd moved from the penthouse to a real house with a yard, somewhere their daughter could play. The city lights still sparkled below, but the view was different now, warmer, more like home. "Do you ever regret it?" Ji-hoon asked. "Stopping that day? All the complications that came with it?" Martha thought about lost jobs and FBI investigations, about danger and uncertainty, and the 1,000 moments of doubt. Then she thought about this. The life they'd built, the people they'd helped, the love that had grown from blood and crisis. "Not for a second," she said. "Not one single second." "Good, because I plan on spending the rest of my life making sure you never do." They stood together in the darkness, 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way. A black waitress who'd been late for work, a Korean Mafia boss left bleeding in a trunk, and between them, a love story that proved redemption was possible, second chances were real, and sometimes the worst day of your life was actually the beginning of everything beautiful. "Ji-hoon?" "Yes?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For being in that trunk, for living, for choosing to change, for loving me back." He pulled her close, and Martha felt his heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. The heartbeat she'd saved with her own blood, the heartbeat that had become the rhythm of her life. "Thank you," Ji-hoon whispered back, "for stopping, for caring, for seeing me as more than my worst moments, for building this with me." We built it together. Together, he agreed. Always together. And in the darkness, with the city spread below and their daughter sleeping safely inside, Martha Williams and Ji Hoon stood wrapped in each other's arms. Two people who'd found love in crisis, built a family from impossibility, and proved that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop when everyone else drives by. Sometimes the best decision you'll ever make is to help a stranger bleeding in a trunk. Sometimes saving one life saves two. The end was just the beginning, and the beginning had been worth every impossible moment.